Welcome to the Fantasy Show, episode 2 with Aman Nadkarni and Evan Garber. And today we're going to talk about fantasy sports, specifically fantasy football, as it is the last week in most leagues for fantasy baseball. Without further ado, I guess we can get started straight into fantasy football, and we'll first talk about the obvious injury of Christian McCaffrey. It's unfortunate if you're a Panthers fan like me, but for fantasy owners, you better have a good backup running back to fill that place.
Yeah, I actually have that problem in one of my other leagues. I had Christian McCaffrey. I think my backup is, I think it's like Devin White or something. So I'm kind of screwed in that league. I tried trading him right as I found out, see if I could finesse someone, but fortunately I could not. So I don't know what I can do.
All right. Well, for those running backs, let's think of sleepers. I guess the Falcons have. I'm not sure if you call them underwhelming without Julio, because I expected this. But Kyle Pitts, Mike Davis, I thought their team would still be decent, not horrible. They allowed 80 points through 2 games.
Jeez.
That's 40 points allowed per game. And now they're going up against the New York Giants. They're actually favored to win this game, by the way. So Mike Davis could be considered a sleeper, but we'll see what happens, because I feel like he's also been underperforming as a running back in some leagues.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think with that matchup now, I think Saquon is definitely going to have a big game this week. He's been struggling a ton. So if he's healthy, I think he's due to pop off. Finally.
Exactly. And I mean, other than Mike Davis, he's, by the way, 98% rostered in leagues. I'm not sure how he's not 100%, but he's 98%. So if your league is in that 2%, then get Mike Davis. And then a sleeper who is very unexpected, as in no one thought he'd play, or people thought he'd play, but not more than Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, the backup running back. I'm not sure if you call him backup running back anymore, to be honest.
I don't even know.
He's got 123 rushing yards, 7 receptions, 60 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown, and 15.7 fantasy points per game. That is literally numbers Ezekiel Elliott should put up.
Yeah, I don't really know what's going on with Ezekiel Elliott right now.
He's an amazing running back. I don't know why Mike McCarthy is not playing him more.
Maybe it has something to do with his injury. We don't know. Could be his injury still bothering him.
That is true also. But Josh Jacobs, his health is all obviously in concern. But Kenyon Drake, he'll start rising if Josh Jacobs is questionable each matchup.
Yeah, Derek Carr is even having an amazing season this year. So maybe they won't even run the ball as much. Maybe they'll stick to Derek Carr. This is great. He's been absolutely amazing. I can't believe they're still winning games. Crazy.
Oh yeah, they beat the Steelers and Ravens as their first 2 games of the season.
That's insane.
Out of any undefeated team, they proved the most, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think anyone expected them to beat either team, to be honest. Maybe the Steelers after the terrible week 1, but still, I mean, it's the Raiders.
Yeah,
Again,
exactly.
when you ask the average person who's on their team, nobody knows.
They even went to overtime against the Ravens, like a really good team, and they won, which was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it took a little luck there at the end, but still.
And it is true. And then, like, ooh, this is interesting. If Dalvin Cook isn't ready to go, Alexander Mattison is projected to start. So, try to pick him up in your league if you haven't, just in case Dalvin Cook is not ready to go.
Yeah, and
that'll give you points.
with that injury too, you might want to pick up a guy like KJ Osborne, who's been really good this season so far. I think he has more fantasy points than Jefferson this year. I'm pretty sure.
That is true. It's Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and then Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, let's see. He's
Cool.
averaged 10. He's averaged how many?
He's averaged 17.4 fantasy points per game.
Yeah,
That's
crazy.
He's 29% rostered too, so like not in many leagues compared to the other players we're naming right now. So
Yeah, you should definitely pick him up.
oh yeah, and I guess Michael Pittman is another possible sleeper. So is Tyler Boyd. Pittman's 80% rostered, Boyd is 88% rostered. But the Bengals are going up against the Steelers, and against the Steelers, I'm not sure how their defense is gonna be, because their defense is supposed to be really good, but the Steelers just demonstrate that they're like a second half team.
Yeah. I was watching the Raiders Steelers game, and the Raiders were just running it right down the field half the time. I was like, what the heck is happening? You're supposed to have one of the best defenses in the NFL. And like, if your defense sucks, then there's no way you're gonna do well because the offense isn't that great.
Yeah. And then you have like TJ Watt, who's really good.
Yeah, I mean, you have really solid players on the defense. It's not like just a bunch of average guys just that are really good for whatever reason. You have really, really good players.
And as for the tight ends, Austin Hooper, Jack Doyle, and Jared Cook. These are all sort of average tight ends, but for example, Austin Hooper, because of Jarvis Landry now going to be out for a while, he could potentially see more catches and yards. And then Jack Doyle, he's averaging 9.3 fantasy points per game. He's only 10% rostered. And then Jared Cook, he's 74% rostered. And his touchdown was called back due to an illegal shift penalty, but his average is still 8.2 fantasy points per game, which is actually pretty good for backup tight end.
Yeah, that issue is really good. Let's see. Is there any other tight ends that might be good? I'm trying to think about that. Maybe like a guy like Jawan Johnson, maybe. I mean, he had a really good week 1, but his week 2 wasn't that very good. I actually dropped him in our league.
Yeah,
but yeah, because you have Jameis Winston who loves to throw the ball, so maybe he'll get. Like it really depends like who's target per game. To be honest, it seems like it changes every week at this point.
Then to tight ends, we said Jack Doyle, maybe like Max Williams of the Arizona Cardinals. He probably had one of the most unexpected fantasy games I've seen in a while, because Max Williams, week 1, he had 0 receptions and 1 target, right? 0 fantasy points. But then what do you get week 2? 7 receptions, 7 targets, 94 yards, and 16.4 fantasy points in a ESPN PPR. That is very unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, with the weapons that they have there in Arizona, I mean, you're not going to expect that to happen every single week. But speaking of the Cardinals, probably a lot of you guys have already picked him up. But if he's still available in your league, Rondale Moore is definitely a really good pickup.
Oh, yeah. I dropped Rondale Moore. My mistake.
Sadly, I couldn't get him. I tried. What does he have?
I mean, I still have Darnell Mooney, Darius Slayton, and Quentin Cephas guy. Like, the Detroit Lions, why? I don't get why you would get rid of both Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. Why?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's a Lion, so.
Literally your best receiver. And I don't know if it was cap space or some issues, but man, like, what are the Lions doing? They have so many faithful fans, and then it just doesn't go well.
Yeah, I guess they're just trying to stay young. I don't really know. And rebuild, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. Seems like they've been rebuilding for a while.
Yeah, it has. They just can't get. I don't know. They can't get anywhere for whatever reason.
Here's another potential running back, Peyton Barber. He's 3.2 fantasy points, but he's on the Las Vegas Raiders, and he, with Josh Jacobs also injured, he could see some possessions in the red zone to give your team some fantasy points, but I wouldn't rely on Peyton Barber as your backup running back, especially if you have Christian McCaffrey, and maybe even if Dalvin Cook is not ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, another running back that I have is J.D. McKissick. I mean, you have Antonio Gibson there, but McKissick actually outperformed him. He got, let's see.
McKissick did really well.
Yeah, he had 20.3 fantasy points, four receptions, got 10 yards only, but he had 1 touchdown. Sorry, 4 carries, 10 yards, but he had 1 touchdown with 5 receptions and 83 yards. So he's really good for PPR league because he's getting a lot of receptions out of the backfield.
Yeah. And I mean, the Patriots running back situation is, well, you've got James White and Damien Harris. That is an interesting situation because James White did really well, and to an extent Damien Harris did. I guess he put in his normal fantasy points, but James White 18.5 points. So I guess they're sort of sharing the load at running back, but that running back situation is definitely interesting.
Yeah, with Mac Jones struggling, it seems so far this year, the running game is definitely going to be a huge factor for them. So definitely you might want to get one of those 2 guys. I would probably say James White because he's been outscoring. Let's see how many. I mean, he has 6 receptions per game. So that's pretty good. And then he doesn't carry the ball. He doesn't run the ball as much as he'd probably like to.
Yeah.
But you still got the receptions.
As for Damien Harris, just 11.7 points in week 1 and then 13.4 points. So pretty much his normal amount, I guess, that you would expect from him. So that's what we have. And by the way, all these most of these stats we're saying for these players is based off of an ESPN PPR league, which is why when we say some player got this amount of points, it might be different than your league. Another receiver we didn't name, I'm not sure if you call him a sleeper or I don't know if you rely on him and to start him. Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, he's finally gonna return this week. I think you definitely can rely on him now that Jefferson injury is out. I think he might have a huge game. We'll have to see after his injury. I mean, he had a pretty bad injury, so
yeah,
we'll have to see if he can come back and still be as good as he was.
And like before we get into another segment of players that you should try to get, Sterling Shepard is another receiver who has been doing really well.
Yeah, I can't believe how well the Giants are doing with Daniel Dimes.
Yeah, I remember that draft. Everyone's like Dwayne Haskins, and then the Giants get Daniel Jones, and then now look at both of them. Compare both of them.
Yeah, they're both playing solid.
Yeah. Well, Haskins is a backup on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is doing really well, but Sterling Shepard, man, he's like 24.3 points in week 1, and then 17.5 points in week 2. That's just the team that has Sterling Shepard, by the way, is using Sterling Shepard because of OBJ being hurt. But I'm not sure if you start OBJ over him, because Sterling Shepard's been doing really well.
Yeah, he hasn't put up the touchdown numbers yet. He only has 1 touchdown this season so far. But he's been putting up amazing numbers in terms of yards and receptions. He has average of 8 receptions per game, and he had 113 yards in his first game and 94 yards last game. So he's definitely a good PPR person to have.
And the benefit of having Sterling Shepard is the Giants are going against the Falcons, and we know how bad the Falcons are.
Yeah, I don't even know. How are they so bad every single year? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like don't they know to like draft a cornerback or something, or maybe even trade for a guy or in free agency get with someone or something?
And then I'm not sure if we talk about quarterbacks too much, but Teddy Bridgewater is averaging 24.8 fantasy points per game. He has 592 passing yards, 20 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, 51% roster. I guess Justin Fields, he's 82% rostered with Dalton going down. We'll see how he does, but I'd pick him up, but leave him on your bench just to see how he does, because he's averaging 5.1 fantasy points per game, but that's because he's not really starting. But now he is. I wouldn't trust him his first game because he is a rookie quarterback. And then,
yeah.
Oh, what were we gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that I think he might be a stud actually. He looked really, really good in college. So hopefully he can bring it over to the NFL.
Yeah, now that I think about it, these rookie quarterbacks are kind of struggling. Like Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't even know either. I mean, it's tough coming back from a COVID college season.
Yeah.
So they're probably still trying to get back into the swing of things, and to go from basically your junior year, whatever your last year was 2 years ago, all the way to NFL. That's a pretty big change.
Yeah, And I don't like when teams get rid of their veteran quarterbacks to make way for their rookie quarterbacks. I feel like the rookie quarterback should learn behind the veteran quarterback for at least a season or more, and then be put into the system, not just kind of shoved into the system. You look at Patrick Mahomes. He learned for a year behind Alex Smith, and he even credits some of his success to Alex Smith. So I don't like how NFL teams just get rid of their veteran quarterbacks and shove their rookie quarterbacks into this new system.
Yeah, I think if anything, like I understand the purpose of it from a contract perspective, but you can literally just like restructure his contract so that it's good for you, so that you can still mentor your young quarterback, but he's not getting paid so much that you have to start him.
Exactly. And then I don't know if you picked him up yet, but Derek Carr, he's 83% rostered. Just pick him up at this point. Like, you see how he's been doing. He's averaged 28.1 fantasy points per game, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 15 rushing yards, but 817 passing yards.
Wow. I don't think anyone saw that coming out of Derek Carr.
Exactly. That is an average of 408.5 passing yards per game. Per game, 400 passing yards. That's crazy. Against the Ravens, Ravens did lose with Marcus Peters, but then the Steelers, he's going up against defenses that are really good. So
yeah,
we'll see. Like, if he continues on this 408.5 yards per game on this pace, he will get he can get about 6 through 16 games. Even though there's 17 games, through 16 games, Derek Carr is gonna get 6,536 passing yards.
Holy cow!
So I guess with the 17th game, if he throws another 400, so he'll get around mid 6,900s. That's crazy for Derek Carr.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how he does against the AFC West, because the defense is actually really solid on all 3 teams.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see if he can keep it up against those teams.
And then now we get into, I guess, segment that doesn't really have a name, but we're gonna talk about the players that are actually considered pretty good, but you shouldn't offer too much for them. So, Justin Jefferson, Evan pretty much said it with KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen. Justin Jefferson is getting less fantasy points than them. He's the 3rd best receiver on the Vikings in terms of fantasy, and he is currently ranked as a wide receiver 30 in PPR leagues. So what do you think? Should people trade? Like,
I think now that his value is low, I would at least try to trade for him. See if you can try to lowball someone for him. I think eventually he's gonna have a breakout game. They throw the ball a lot, it seems like. So I feel like eventually he's due to pop off at some point this season.
Yeah, but I mean, if he does it week after week, then I don't know what we should do. But Antonio Gibson is interesting. We also talked about J.D. McKissick. Antonio Gibson, he's also, I guess, interesting in some sorts because, like we said, J.D. McKissick had a monster game week 2, so his average is gonna go up, and Antonio Gibson so far in the ESPN PPR league. In week 2, he had 9.3 fantasy points and 11.8 in week 1, but he's still projected to score 14.6 points. So honestly, like Evan said, for Justin Jefferson, and applies here for Antonio Gibson, because honestly, running backs can be pretty valuable at times. Not at times, they can be like pretty valuable, especially if you have like McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook, who will be out in week 3. So Antonio Gibson, I feel like he's a player you should definitely try to trade for, but don't give up too much, because this trade value is sort of going down with JD McKissick. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he should try to pay for him too. I mean, he's averaging 4.8 yards per carry. So if they keep, as long as they keep running the ball, he'll still get you a pretty solid amount of points in terms of yards, at least.
Exactly. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't think you should trade for him, to be honest. But I mean, if you're that desperate for a running back, honestly, but don't trade for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because it's not his fault. I just feel like it's the system that he got drafted into, because you're in the Chiefs system, this high-powered offense, this high-scoring offense. 1 minute they're on their own 1-yard line, and the next minute they already scored a touchdown. That's how fast the Chiefs system goes. I think the Chiefs were just better off with the average running back, because Mahomes isn't going to hand off the ball too often, because you got Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and a bunch of other weapons. So, and their offensive line, they just really made it better.
Yeah, I agree with you about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's not gonna get the ball too many times. I mean, there's too many weapons on the Chiefs for him to be an option, basically. So, I mean, they still got a few touches here and there, running the ball, obviously, because obviously you're not gonna throw the ball every single play, but he's not gonna get too many passes at all when you have Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce on your team.
And then these players are interesting. The next 2 are tight ends. First one is Kyle Pitts. I know I have him. I know we tried to negotiate a trade for him, but Kyle Pitts hasn't really done too well. But that's partly because the Falcons' offense as a whole is just struggling.
Yeah, like I said, I think it was last week. I think I said this, but Matt Ryan, he's just falling apart right now. I mean, the past 2 seasons, he's been terrible. I don't know what's going on with him.
And then Kyle Pitts, he's still projected 10.7 fantasy points, and then he's 7.1 fantasy points against Philadelphia, and then 12.3 against Tampa Bay. If he keeps growing like that, then that means he's gonna have a big game, and they're going against the New York Giants. I feel like that's a favorable opponent, even if they have James Bradbury. That's still a favorable opponent, in my opinion, to start Kyle Pitts. Because when everyone said to bench Terry McLaurin because he's going up against James Bradbury, he scored 27.7 ESPN PPR fantasy points. 27.7. So Kyle Pitts definitely has a favorable matchup. Before the Falcons offense sort of Falcons offense, I'm not sure what the word is, but because they've been struggling. Once they actually start doing well, who knows, Kyle Pitts might start doing well. So try to, trade for him, but not too many players for him, as he is struggling.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he's a really good player, so I feel like he's bound to pop off at some point. Especially with Calvin Ridley on his team, because they probably pay more attention to Calvin Ridley than they will Kyle Pitts, considering he's a rookie, and Calvin Ridley is a really good wide receiver.
And then this is interesting because I'm not sure if you don't trade not too many players for this player. The tight end that I'm about to name is George Kittle. I'm not sure if you can definitely try to trade for him, but I'm not sure if you trade less for him.
I feel like most owners that have Kittle, I feel like they'll try to keep him unless they get a really good offer. I mean, he's still George Kittle. He's such a great tight end. I mean, now with the running game struggling for the Niners, I feel like he'll get a lot more receptions now. Even Ayuk too. Ayuk's gonna have a big game soon, probably. So we'll have to see if they can both get it going.
Yeah, and the Niners are going up against the Packers on a great Sunday night football game. On a side note, they finally got the Sunday night games right. Like, I don't care about division rivals games. Make it like the best teams in the NFL going at it for your primetime game. Because everyone wants to see this Niners Packers game.
Yeah, like the Thursday night game. It was, who was it again? It was the, can't remember. Do you remember?
Which game?
The Thursday night game.
Oh, the Panthers Texans.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's honestly gonna watch that game.
Yeah, exactly. Even as a Panthers fan, I'm excited Panthers are on primetime, but why Panthers Texans?
Yeah, those are literally probably two of the most irrelevant teams in the league right now.
Exactly. But I have to say Sam Darnold is off the flying start without Adam Gase.
Yeah, I'm not saying the Panthers aren't a good team, but
yeah,
I mean, nobody wants to watch them. Nobody cares.
Exactly.
Unless you have Christian McCaffrey, nobody cares.
Yeah. And then fantasy players you should potentially trade a bit more for is, I'm not sure if you would trade a bit more for Damien Harris. He has put up regular numbers, but that means that he's not going to bust often in your fantasy league. So if you want, I guess I'll call him a reliable running back, then trade for Damien Harris, because he's not showing signs that he's gonna bust anytime soon. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's even guys like maybe Jonathan Taylor, who's been struggling. I guess I'd say. Like compared to last year, he's been struggling. So maybe you try to trade for him, knowing that he can pop off. But maybe even you get people to fall for him because he was so great last year. Maybe you'll get guys that are willing to trade a lot for him.
17.6 fantasy points in week 1. This is Jonathan Taylor's stats, and then 6.3 points against the Rams. So, and then Deebo Samuel has been just exploded this year in terms of fantasy and on the field too.
Yeah. I personally think if you have him, try to sell him as high as you can right now. Eventually George Kittle and Ayuk are gonna get going, so Deebo Samuel will get less points, and then eventually the Niners, I think, will establish a better run game than they have right now. So Deebo's value is gonna go down, I believe, in the next few weeks.
Yes, and then Deebo Samuel exploded against Detroit. 9 receptions, 12 targets, 189 yards, 1 touchdown, and then on his way to 31.9 fantasy points, and then he got 16.1 fantasy points against the Eagles. So I'm not sure if like to Evans' point, if you sort of sell high for him. Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Rob Gronkowski, I feel like just showed up out of nowhere in fantasy.
Yeah, they really did. I don't even know either. I mean, I would trade Antonio Brown right now. I mean, personally, I don't think people are gonna fall for him that much, considering Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are both on the team too. I feel like they're still gonna be the main weapons. But I mean, maybe you'll get a guy to fall for him, considering the number he's putting up right now.
Exactly, and that goes for Rob Gronkowski as well.
Yeah, I personally think they should keep Gronkowski for now. He's Tom Brady's favorite target. It seems like they're going back to New England days right now.
Yeah,
so just keep him for now. I get maybe if he has one game that he struggles in, maybe then trade him. But for now, I'd keep him.
Tyler Lockett too. He's put up 2 pretty big leagues, and he's the wide receiver 2 in PPR leagues. And this is hurting DK Metcalf's value. So I guess Metcalf is a player you should potentially trade for along with Lockett. But I mean, we'll see. What do you think about Lockett and Metcalf?
I believe Metcalf is gonna start playing well eventually. I remember my friend, he was saying that DK Metcalf said he's done with the trash talking now, so now he's more focused on the game. So maybe now he'll finally pop off, and Lockett's value will go down.
Yeah, and then Tyler Lockett too. I feel like he's had many seasons where he's done well to start and then sort of went down.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly just coin flip between him and the DK every game. It seems like.
Yeah.
Well, you either have. I mean, you don't really have many games where both of them do extremely well. It's either one or the other.
Yeah. Because against the Colts, Tyler Lockett had 4 reception yards, 5 targets, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 fantasy points. And then he wasn't done yet. Against the Titans, 8 receptions, 11 targets, 178 yards, and 1 touchdown at 31.8 fantasy points. So I guess choose which Seahawks receiver you want to draft, but be aware when you're trying to trade quite a bit of players and a trade does get accepted, there are going to be weeks that the players you traded popped off, but then there will be weeks where you trade, for example, for a Tyler Lockett, for a George Kittle, for a DK Metcalf, where they're going to bust. So it's always risky when you're trying to trade a lot for him. So what I would suggest is don't trade high immediately. If you have various trade proposals for a player that you want, don't make the first trade your tons of players. Try to sell low at the start. Not sell, trade low. Like trade not too many players. If it gets declined, then slowly try to add trade bait to your trade. But I personally would do that because if you, like I said, trade a lot first, then it might be a mistake.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's not a lot of guys right now that you would trade tons for at the moment, in my opinion. But yeah, I totally agree. Don't trade. Try to trade at least amount as possible. So start off low, and then if it keeps declining, then keep going a little bit higher. Not too high though.
Yeah,
obviously.
Not too high. Don't, because sometimes you're just looking at players and then selecting the trade button, and then sometimes you don't realize the players you're trading for. So don't keep trading high because you're better off. Sometimes you're better off with the players that you're trying to trade.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And so that will mark the end of episode 2 of the fantasy show with Aman Nadkarni and Evan Garber. I'm gonna try to get back to the normal podcast too soon. Once I figure things out. But if not, the next Saturday will be episode 3 of this fantasy show with Aman Nadkarni and Evan Garber. Thanks for tuning in this week.